Morning, everybody. Welcome to G9 in the Wilson Building. We're delighted to have you all here. I think, as you all know, we have recently rolled out a number of important initiatives. The D.C. Public Schools 5-year strategic plan, which we did right in this room, the Early Success Framework, and Raise D.C. As well. Today, I just wanted to take the opportunity to connect the dots for everyone and explain how these initiatives will put into practice the overall cradle-to-career vision that we've talked about, and we have a number of people who are going to join with me in connecting the dots. I think many will recall that I first talked about this during the State of the District address, which now is a little over, well, soon will be 3 months ago, back in February. The vision and the initiatives that will make it reality will ensure that not only all of our district's children, city's children, succeed, but they are ready to compete in the new economy. And of course, the new economy will focus not only on what we've been able to do well and get people to work, but also on becoming a technology center and expanding our presence in the green economy as well as in health services. We believe that this is the direction for the 21st century as we try to expand the base here in the District of Columbia. To ensure that these efforts are coordinated to create a collective impact, Raise D.C. will provide a comprehensive overarching strategy to create an educational system that prepares all of our children to be able to live successfully here in the District of Columbia. With a vision towards prepared youth, productive residents, and thriving communities, Raise D.C. recognizes that we expect our youth to succeed in life. If we expect them to succeed, then we must provide a wide array of support services in order to be able to achieve that. Raise D.C. is the Cradle to Career comprehensive collaborative strategy with measurable citywide goals and outcomes. Key elements are early childhood development, education reform, which is specifically what we talked about in the new 5-year plan, and of course job training, which we've been focusing on almost from day one. Raise D.C. reflects a greater emphasis on aligning existing efforts and strategies across the entire administration. I think it's the first time the city has been able to do this kind of alignment. Very complicated because it means many agencies have to work effectively together, and that, of course, you know, when you hear it, when you see it on paper, makes perfect sense, but try making it happen in reality when you get into the nuances and complexities of that. And one of the ways in which we've seen that to be problematic in the past is to see some of our agencies, some of our bureaucracies operate in what we call silos, which everybody is familiar with that term. Missing from the equation also have been clear and transparent goals. We believe that we have now established those that will give everybody a framework for moving forward. The starting point is the early success framework, and it's something that I have had the opportunity to work directly on now for several years. Some will recall I did the legislation when I was on the council that created a commitment to a universal pre-kindergarten effort. We're now moving those efforts towards infants and toddlers to try to expand our efforts in that area. Today, we're going to hear from our deputy mayors, Wright and Otero, but we also will hear from some people who would have joined us previously in talking about this and will be partners in this effort. Lucretia Murphy, who is executive director of the See Forever Foundation, which of course is part of the Maya Angelou charter school effort here in the city. Thomas Penny, who's the general manager of the Courtyard by Marriott, who hosted us, I guess about a week ago when we started, at least talked about a piece of this. And then Skip McCoy, who is chairman of the State Early Childhood Development Coordinating Council. I appreciate what they are doing, and then along with 24 nonprofit, corporate, philanthropic, government leaders, they are part of the Raise D.C. Cradle to Career partnership. I want to start with 2 or 3 people. First of all, Lucretia Murphy, who we appreciated, Lucretia, that you were with us when we announced a piece of this, and I appreciate the job that you did. Thomas Penny, who is here with us today. And then we're going to be followed by our Deputy Mayor for Education, Deshaun Wright. So, Lucretia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it is certainly an honor to be here. As the Mayor said, my name is Lucretia Murphy. I'm the Executive Director of the See Forever Foundation and the Maya Angelou Public Charter Schools, and I'm honored and humbled to also be the co-chair with Deshaun Wright for the Raise DC Cradle to Career Initiative. I feel like I should either stand real tall or figure out a way to, there we go. So what is the initiative? As the Mayor said, what we're looking to do with this is to really launch a simple vision: to see all of DC's children, youth, and young adults achieve success from the cradle to a life-sustaining career. We know that making it from the cradle to career is not a simple journey. There are far too many youth and young adults between the ages of 17 and 24 who do not have a high school credential and are also not prepared for the careers that exist in DC. And for too many of our young males, this journey then becomes from cradle to prison. So we can now act to break this cycle. And what have we done to date? Over the last several months, community leaders from multiple sectors, as the Mayor had said, have come together, committed to develop a roadmap to get us from where we are to where we need to be. And for each phase of the journey from cradle to career, we've identified some clear and identifiable targets. For example, for Ready to School, by fall of 2013, working together with those who are leading the early childhood framework, we would have established the benchmark and some percentages for what Ready for School should look like and the targets for improvement from there. By 2017, we will be increasing our graduation rate. Not only the percentage of young people graduate, but the expectation that they're graduating ready to be successful in post-secondary education. On the higher education side, we've been working with partners who've identified what their goals are for increasing post-secondary attainment of degrees, a BA or an associate's degree, but also the increase of credentials that are industry recognized in the District of Columbia. A critical goal, we believe, is also the one to reconnect young people, 3,000 of them, who are ages 16 through 24, who are not currently working and not currently employed. I think this one is particularly powerful. It's critical to invest in a pipeline from age 0 to age 24. But as a community, we also have to have the infrastructure to reconnect young people who either from poor decisions, changes or challenges in life circumstances, need to reconnect to that critical pathway for post-secondary education and careers. We know that as adults we make mistakes. They may have significant consequences. Rarely does it mean your chances for redemption and opportunity end. We need to say the same thing to our young people. It means a lot to say it's never too late to invest in the life of a young person. So this is our opportunity to work smarter. It is important to recognize, as the Mayor said, that the Raise DC initiative is aligning existing efforts in the community from 0 to 24 success for young people. So these are not new targets. They're aligned with the Early Success Framework. They're aligned with the Chancellor's goals for DCPS. They're aligned with the Charter Board's goals for the charter sector. They're aligned with the Workforce Investment Act and the Workforce Investment Council's goals for post-secondary and for employment for youth. So this initiative demands more than an education compact. This is a new opportunity to bring all sectors of the community and public sector together around a shared vision and purpose. We know young people will need supports in and outside of the school buildings to be ready for careers in the 21st century. They need healthy meals. Some will need social services to support families in crisis. All will need a safe place to live, and young adults will need meaningful work experiences to prepare them for adulthood. So through this initiative, we can rethink our entire system to ensure that all the resources that touch the lives of young people from 0 to 24 are aligned to meet the ultimate objective of college and ultimately career readiness. This is a daunting challenge. It's certainly not a new vision, and good people have worked hard for years in order to achieve these goals for our young people. Still, our young people don't have the success we'd like to see. But we know if we get mired in the failures of the past, we will fail to recognize these new opportunities for success. I am invigorated by the level of engagement that we have seen by over 100 community members to come together for 2 days to develop a roadmap, to make a commitment to look at the data, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and set benchmarks and new outcomes that we can achieve, and the willingness across sectors to be accountable to the success of young people at every stage of their journey. Nothing happens overnight, but we have successes to build on, and with all the sectors that have come together for these initiatives, education, business, philanthropy, government, and community organizations, we know we have the resources necessary to be successful if we stay the course. And with our success, the nation's capital can finally become a national model for success for raising the expectations and outcomes for children, youth, and young adults from the cradle and ultimately to their careers. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here representing the Marriott organization as well as my hotel and the Hotel Association. And while we're busy preparing to build a shortly under 1,200 room hotel, when we first found out about this initiative, I remember sitting in a board meeting, and as an association, as an industry, we were trying to decide how to engage. And I asked my colleagues, one, I acknowledge that the majority of our associates are in their 50s. So at some point, they're going to be transitioning out, and there's going to be a need to backfill that talent. And so I asked my colleagues, I said, if not now, when? If not here, where? And if not us, who? And so we got engaged with this initiative for the purpose of raising DC. And for us, this is something that's very personal. As a native Washingtonian, of course, I started in the business as a dishwasher and was able to transition to be a general manager. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to have DC youth that graduate from DC high schools go on to college and assume positions of leadership in our industry. And so we believe with the Raise DC initiative, it's going to allow for more young people to transition to college and assume positions of leadership in our industry. And in essence, we're really excited to be partners in this endeavor. 13 years ago, the Hotel Association and the Marriott organization invested millions of dollars in opening a high school, the Hospitality High School of Washington, D.C. And we're proud of what we've been able to accomplish with this one school. We graduate 100% of our seniors, and we send 80% to college. And we believe this Raise DC initiative is a continuation of what we've been doing with one school citywide. And so as an organization, we're excited in terms of Marriott. As an industry, and all of the 100 hotels in the city, we're excited to be a part of this initiative. And we like to think that, we're like starving horses standing in grass. This initiative is going to connect the resources of the city. It's a critical collaborative that will connect the resources of the city all around the common theme of raising DC. And so we're really excited to be a part of this initiative. We look forward to its success in future years.
Great. So what you've heard this morning, both from Thomas and from Lucretia, as well as the mayor, is an understanding that the importance of having an overarching set of goals and targets so that we can both mark and assess our progress along the way, but also map existing programs and efforts along the 0 to 24 continuum so that we can direct and realign resources accordingly. Two major components of the Raise DC strategy will be a laser-like focus on positioning all of our education-focused strategies, initiatives, and programs toward the named Raise DC targeted goals and the rollout of the Early Success Framework, which you'll hear about shortly from Deputy Mayor Otero and Skip McCoy, represents one piece of our Cradle to Career strategy. But in essence, the mayor's challenged all of us, the education agencies, the health and human service agencies, and our community partners to meet 8 bold goals by 2014. And those goals are really centered around those that have the greatest impact on the well-being of our children, which are our communities, our families, our local professionals, and our communities as a whole. The second part of the Raise DC strategy is to really build real collaboration and leadership across sectors to ensure the long-term sustainability and success of our efforts. One of the things I think that we've learned through a history of education reform is that you do not want to change course every 4 to 8 years, depending who the political leadership is. And so we needed to build the civic infrastructure to keep focus on a core set of goals to make sure that we are marshaling along and that we can build upon that as opposed to reinventing the wheel. We've already achieved a great deal of success, as Lucretia has talked about, in developing our executive team. We have a cross-sector of professionals who are going to help us lead the way. We had our 2-day design institute, which included over 100 participants who helped give feedback and input to the targeted goals, which we've shared with you this morning. And going forward, we really want to do 4 things. One is to finalize the membership of our leadership council this spring. That will be another group of professionals that will help expand upon and support the executive team in the execution of these goals. Begin to establish initial change networks this spring and this summer. And the change networks are really important and provide an opportunity for the public at large to get involved in a meaningful way to make sure that we're all focused on achieving the goals that we've set. Identifying a long-term anchor institution by the spring or the summer. My office, the Deputy Mayor for Education's office, has served as the incubating body for this. But again, in order to really build that civic infrastructure and long-term sustainability of the effort, we know that we need an external partner who can really going to take ownership of this and keep all administrations down the road in the future focused on those same goals. And then lastly, the question was asked when we rolled this out initially last week. The question was, how do we know you're going to be making progress? And very clearly, folks, we're going to tell you. We're going to be making sure that we publish data annually along the way, and that's going to begin this fall, where we're going to publish our baseline report card and outcomes goals, so that folks will know where we're starting and where we're going annually as we march toward these goals over the next 4 years. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mayor to introduce the early success framework.
Thank you very much to Lucretia, to Thomas, and to Deputy Mayor Wright. You know, the effort here, as I stand here and listen, I've been around for a long time, the effort here is really, in part, to translate government speak into human speak. So that people really understand, you know, when we start talking about alignments and agencies and all of the terminology that comes with that, that we're really trying to figure out how we take the resources that we have in the District of Columbia and get people working on the same page. It's not the first time that we've heard that, but it may be the first time we will have done it, because there have been too many instances, frankly, in which, you know, various agencies were very well intended without recognizing that working principally or solely in their own little box, they really have missed an opportunity to be able to connect the dots on behalf of children. It's one of the important roles, frankly, of the deputy mayors, to be able to reach across agencies and recognize the cross-cutting initiatives and the value to especially our children in the city. I think anybody who will listen to me knows I will regale you with my own views on early childhood education and pre-kindergarten and infants and toddlers and prenatal care, because I think that is ultimately the answer. And I have concluded that if I say it 437,000 times, maybe somebody will listen. Maybe somebody will get it. And I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But I think we recognize that there are a lot of people who get it. They just need to understand a framework within which they can operate and will commit to that. One of the people who is here that is not speaking today is Herb Tillery, who formerly was a deputy mayor here in the District of Columbia and has worked hard to make sure we get more of our children going to college, making sure they have the resources to be able to go to college. But one need only talk to Herb and recognize that while in the specific sense he's working with children who are in the 10th, 11th, 12th grade and coming out of high school, he firmly recognizes the importance of the very early years and being able to prepare children for those opportunities. So again, we have our Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services who has been charged with the responsibility of making those agencies work on behalf of our families and especially our children. And then, of course, Skip McCoy has joined us today. Skip has a long and distinguished record in the city of giving of himself, and he's doing that again, working with our early success effort. and especially around the coordinating council that he now chairs, specifically the State Early Childhood Development Coordinating Council. So I want to start with Deputy Mayor Otero, and then we'll transition to Skip McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everybody. As the mayor said, early success is a framework. It is an opportunity for us as city agencies, community organizations, partners in the well-being of children to direct our activities towards a set of outcomes. If you look at the Raise DC, the very first goal is every child is ready for pre-kindergarten. In order for that to happen, we have to assure that we've reached every child, that we've reached every parent, and that every community that is in fact caring for these children is well prepared to support them as they become ready to enter school. As the mayor stated, this requires sort of unprecedented collaboration across city agencies, not just in the education sector, but across the human services sector. So Deshaun Wright and I are working very closely together and bringing together our agencies and under our purview and making sure that they're aligning, as the mayor said. That is, what does that mean? That means that if we have a mental health program that is being deployed to schools and to early childhood centers, that everyone in that program understands what the outcome is for those children and what the expectations are. As we look at our home visitation programs that are sort of dispersed across the city, how do we assure that every one of them knows what the goals are for young children, for their families, and that we are measuring those and assuring that if the programs aren't meeting those goals, then we can tweak them and change them so that they're not in silos, but they're in coordination towards a set of outcomes. It's a focused direction for every agency that touches a child and a parent in this city. The overarching goals for early success assure that children develop in enriching environments. That means that wherever children are, those environments, whether they're at home, whether they're in a child development center, whether they are in a clinic, are environments that meet the highest level of quality. So that means a great deal of work across lots of city agencies. That families are linked to opportunities, resources that strengthen their role as parents, whether that is parenting classes or whether that is assuring that parents are getting their kids to their health appointments, and that parents are also informed as to, it's not an automatic that you know what to do as a parent. So how much information can we get? Can we get information out to parents to say, if your child is 1 year old and is not exhibiting certain activities, it's not exhibiting certain behaviors, should you be concerned? And if you are, and what are the resources that you can reach out to make sure that that child is assessed and that your child receives the kinds of supports that he or she needs? Long term, what that means is that that child gets those supports at age 1. The likelihood that that child at age 6, 7, or 8 will need special ed is much, much less. So making sure that we are addressing and reaching more children in terms of their early developmental needs. In that sense, the mayor has asked us to look at lowering the threshold for children who have developmental needs at a very early age, and that if a child is at 25% of developmental delay, and any of you who are parents, you know, when you worry about, is my child talking at the rate that they should? Is he or she starting to walk when they should, or when they should? Is my child making eye contact with me? Is my child responding to his or her name? All of those things are triggers that if they're not happening at certain developmental stages, then parents should be worried about, and we should be able to provide them with the resources, not wait for a child to be severely developmentally delayed before we can support them. Professionals working with children need to be trained and need to be the highest level, so we are looking at making sure that professionals have the right credentials and the right degrees, whether they're in child development centers, family daycare homes, or in the classrooms and schools. And finally, that the communities in which our children are living are safe. And, you know, and in a lot of this, we are counting on Deputy Mayor Quanner to make sure that he's working with us closely and that we're targeting those communities where children are unsafe and parents cannot provide them with the resources they need. So my hope is that as we roll out early success as a core piece of the Raise DC, that we really do the work as organizations, community organizations and agencies, to have those children ready for school so that the work that teachers can do in the classroom is really about their educational success and not necessarily all of the developmental needs. Thank you very much.
Morning. I'm Skip McCoy. I'm Director of Programs for Fight for Children. But I'm here this morning and honored to be the chair of the Mayor's State Early Childhood Development Coordinating Council. Excuse me. As I was sitting here in line, I was reflecting on how what everybody is saying is a little bit the same side or a different side of the same coin, and I think that's a great thing. I've been in town a little more than 30 years. I was involved in planning. I was planning director back in the late 70s and early 80s, and we looked at some of the same things. And I think what the mayor has said is critical. There's two things everybody's saying. One, it needs these government organizations and the private sector need to coordinate, need to work together. Two, we all have to have the same outcomes. It doesn't help if public safety, education, mental health are doing great service, but they're not working towards the same outcomes. So I think that's a major difference with this initiative that's got us all excited and speaking to the same music. Our council is very excited about both these efforts. One sort of sets a framework for what we already think we're supposed to be doing, and two, gives us more encouragement that the sort of outcomes and objectives we're looking for when kids reach kindergarten are supported by the mayor and by all the agencies and all of the independent organizations and business in town. We're all focused on the same outcomes. We think that school preparedness recognizes the importance of partnerships, families, communities, and schools, because children are most successful, and we all know this, when they're surrounded by loving support. Very few infants are going to make it all the way just by themselves. Every now and then somebody might, but very few. They need the community, they need the family, and obviously they need the schools and the other services. The work of our council aligns common initiatives in DC so that all elements of early childhood development, from health to education, are coordinated and effectively collaborating towards a common goal. The mayor's announcement today reaffirms that our council and the early childhood education and development are strongly aligned with the direction of the city. I should mention our council is established primarily for two reasons. One, there are Head Start requirements that every state, and for this purpose we function as a state, must meet. We're overseeing those milestones. And secondly, you're familiar that when Mayor Gray was chair of the council, he sponsored an early pre-K legislation that has in it some targets. We oversee those targets as well. So we're a group of 27 nonprofit, business, government, community organizations pulled together previous to this announcement to focus on those things. And so what we see is that this is tremendously aligned with our mission. We have 4 subcommittees that also we think will provide data and will help reach the outcomes that we are focused on here. Just run them off quickly. One is data needs assessment. Capacity building, that is, do we have the professionals in town who can work with the kids and bring the best out of our kids before they reach kindergarten. Communications and community engagement. The community obviously is incredibly important all along at every stage. And collaboration, that is, we've got health, we've got mental health. There are dental issues for kids. It's very important that we collaborate and that the milestones you see behind us are met by all those who participate. Our members contributed to the development of DC's Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant application, and we're now supporting the Planning Committee toward the implementation of a kindergarten readiness assessment. That is to say, as many of you know, the state of Maryland and other jurisdictions have some sort of assessment to find out how kids are doing when they're 5, 6 years old, so that they can then provide the sort of support that leads to very successful academic careers. We do not have that at this point. We are, as you see up here, we're aligned and committed to come up with some sort of assessment. With representation from the public schools, the charter schools, the private centers, and the coordinating council, I'm confident that we will develop an approach that accommodates the needs of all types of early learning programs and simultaneously provides DC with the information it requires in order to continue to improve and to reach these outcomes to which we all subscribe.
I want to thank all of our folks who presented today. You know, hopefully what is apparent out of this, too, is that we're really trying to reduce the extent to which we have to address symptoms. In some respects, a disability that a child experiences is a symptom. It's not every disability, of course. But the failure to address, as Deputy Mayor Otero talked about, the failure to address a developmental delay at an early point perhaps relegates a child to being disabled for life or for a very long time. Many of these early developmental delays can be ameliorated and eliminated with interventions. It also addresses truancy, which is oftentimes a symptom, not the problem itself. It is a symptom of a problem because some of the things that happened much earlier in life. So again, if you look at those 5 goals, which you have right before you, they really run the gamut from virtually the time a child is born until they move through our educational system and into adulthood. And I think if this city stays the course, we will see dramatic results in the years ahead. And that's a part of the problem. And that is, people don't have a lot of patience to stay the course in ways that they need to. People want to see something immediately. They want to see something 5 minutes from now. You're not going to see these kind of changes in 5 minutes. It just isn't going to happen. You're going to have to start working, which we are, working with children at a very early age and watch them move through. And you will see SEE, a sea change, SEA, over time in the results and the successes of our children here in the city. So I hope that, you know, as this unfolds, people will recognize that we'll have benchmarks, but the real results will be, you know, let's say 10 or 15 years from now when we see the number of children who are graduating from high school, the truancy, the drop in the truancy rates, the drop in the number of children who, because of environmental circumstances, wind up in special education who otherwise could have averted that experience. I'm absolutely convinced that this is going to be successful. So again, the reason why we're emphasizing this, the reason why we're connecting the dots, the reason why we're trying to get this message across as effectively as we can is to try to engage more people in understanding what really fundamentally is required to change in a dramatic way outcomes for our children, for our youth, and ultimately for our families here in the District of Columbia. So we're all ready now. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take those. Alan.
Mayor, you acknowledged that in the past there have been plans like this that look really great on paper and didn't end up coming to fruition. Why and how is this plan different? Why will we see success in this?
Well, I think because of the dynamics, Alan. I think we've recognized, we've tried to organize the government, particularly in a way. We've tried to develop relationships with the private sector so that everybody is in the same room, everybody is engaged with essentially the same dynamic and moving daily in the same direction. It isn't because the plans in the past were bad or weren't visionary. The implementation was stymied by the fact that people, for whatever reason, couldn't work effectively together. Maybe the outcomes were not defined in a way that everybody could see themselves there. Maybe it was not articulated in a way where large numbers of people could really grasp it and didn't see it as just another, you know, conversation about improving outcomes for children. I think what makes this different is not, and you've heard it several times, is not so much that there is some fantastic, great new idea. It's aligning the stars, connecting the dots, you know, however one wants to phrase that, in a way that has everybody moving in the same direction. And frankly, that is going to require a commitment over the long haul. You know, we can do that. We can have a nice meeting today or, you know, a month full of meetings. That's not the answer. The answer is the fact that we are going to have to stay the course. And frankly, I'll state something that I've said before, and I'm going to continue to promote this, and that is America is no longer the leader in education. You know, some think we are. We're not in the top 10 internationally. We're not even in the top 20 internationally anymore. I believe that we need a longer school day. You know, all these after-school programs that we have developed really are compensatory mechanisms for recognizing that children need to be engaged in something constructive after the 3 o'clock, 3:15 time of day. Put those into school and call them school. And let's have school until 4:30, 5 o'clock during the day. Frankly, it would be more convenient for parents anyway and would be a better experience for our kids. And I think, again, this agrarian concept, this 19th century agrarian concept of you get out of school in the middle of June and you go back at the end of August or early September, it's outdated. It's no longer contemporary, and it doesn't work. We are in a competition in the world for being able to be competitive. And a part of being competitive is making sure we have kids who can come out and be a part of a workforce, can go to college, get the skills, be a part of the workforce that will keep America competitive. And those are the things that we need to continue to emphasize. Because if we continue on the same path, in my opinion, America will continue in a decline educationally and probably on other fronts as well. Ms. Brazil.
I had two questions. Can you give a specific example of a program or an initiative that is new that Raise DC would be about?
Well, do I have to? I mean, I've said over and over and over again that what we're trying to do is to bring together a lot of good ideas that have evolved, have emerged over time, and try to put them in a coordinated fashion. I could talk about infant and toddler programs. I could talk about what we're doing with early childhood education. I could talk about the fact that EduCare is going to open. It's something that we did the groundbreaking on last year. Let me finish. We did the groundbreaking on last year. It will open in about 30 to 45 days. It will be an opportunity for us to look at best practices in terms of how we educate infants and toddlers, how we educate children, proliferate that across the system. So I could talk about all of that. But I think the point we're trying to make here today is that we've got a lot of elements that could be very diverse elements that each in its own right could demonstrate some level of success. But without a holistic or gestalt effect, you're not going to get the full benefit, and children are not going to get the full benefit of it. So I think the focus specifically on let's pull this out and say that's a success. Let's pull this out and say that's a success. Even if we could do that, let's say we had a dozen of those, I think it misses the point.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
I'm not either. I'm trying to answer your question.
I'm trying to understand. I don't know if you've read this handout. It is just
Of
full.
course.
It is full
Of course I've read it.
Okay, so help me understand it, because I need to explain it to people. I don't understand what is new. I can understand all these different components, and I understand that the job of the two deputy mayors up there is to do coordination and assure collaboration. So tell me, what is new about Raise DC? Just tell me.
What is it that you don't understand about what I said?
I don't understand what this press conference is about.
The press conference is about saying that we're trying to organize ourselves in this government in a way that will improve outcomes for children. That we have children, we have excuse me. We have had graduation rates that in our DC public schools that are barely above 50%. The graduation rate in our schools overall is 59%. We have children, for example, that we have defined the threshold for developmental delay as. You cut me off. Would you mind not cutting me off?
What is new about Raise DC?
I've done the best I could to try to answer that.
So there's nothing new. Essentially,
It certainly is new.
It's bringing together all the things that DCPS, the different deputy mayors, the different private sector components are doing. But there's nothing really new about Raise DC, right?
Thank you very much for not being argumentative.
Anyone else have another question?
Education or anything else?
Education.
Yeah, let's finish this first. And for those of you who want to talk about the fact that doing the work differently has a major impact, we'll be happy to have that conversation with you in the aftermath. I've been in the field of human services and education for a very long time. And I have watched the fragmentation. I have watched really good efforts be stymied because people didn't see the larger picture, or they didn't commit to working in a larger environment. And frankly, that is new. That is a different way of doing business. Sometimes it's not always the business you do, it's how you do the business. Alan? No?
No other questions on education for the folks up here?
Thank you, guys. Go do something new. Before we move on to other questions, I want to, I think most people know I'm a big sports fan. And I want to invite you to help us with the Washington Nationals to be able to take back the park this weekend, May 4th through the 6th. I think we're playing the Phillies this weekend. And so often in the past, we have had more Philadelphia fans in the stands than we have had Washington fans. We have a good team this year. And there may be other people out there who root for other teams. I'm sorry. You know, move to that city. But, you know, we have a good team this year. They haven't done so well in the last few days. I think they've lost 5 in a row at this stage. But they have a great pitching staff. And if they're hitting, you know, begins to click, they're going to be phenomenal. So I'm asking you to do a couple things. One, this Friday, wear something red. Deputy Mayor Quanda said he's going to wear his red suit to work. He didn't deny it, did he? That's right. And trust me, brother, that would be something new. In any event, wear something red. I'm going to wear a red tie or something on Friday to be able to support our Washington Nationals team. And also, we've got some really outstanding players on this team this year. The voting for the All-Star team will run through the 17th of June. And I invite people to vote because that's how at least the starters are selected. We've got, you know, look at Strasburg. Strasburg, I think, is and certainly will continue to be a great pitcher for a long time in the future. You know, you look at Ryan Zimmerman, who's a great third baseman. So we've got bona fide, qualified players to be on the All-Star team, but unless we support our team, they won't get there. You know, when the Ravens were in the playoffs, people in Baltimore were wearing purple because that's a part of the Ravens, you know, MO. They were wearing purple. Actually, we had a, you know, Governor O'Malley was once the Baltimore mayor. And so he came down here for a meeting, and he had his purple jacket on. And I had, you know, I give him nothing but kudos for supporting his team. So I'm wearing my red tie on Friday, and I invite everybody in this room to wear something red also. No questions on that? Alan.
Mayor Griffin, looking at yesterday's supplemental vote, obviously it wasn't the outcome you were hoping for. What's your takeaway from it? Where do you go from here? Do you see any way to repay furlough down the road?
Well, I think we continue working with this. If you go back and look at it, they never got to a vote on the supplemental. What happened was they voted on the declaration, and the declaration wasn't approved. Had frankly the first vote been on a regular measure, I think it was a 7-5 vote, which would have passed as a quote-unquote regular measure. I believe in what we've put forward in the supplemental, and we'll continue working with the council. I want to thank the chair for his work on this effort. We'll continue working with him. I will continue working directly with him. We think we have an important case to be made. There's money that's needed for the schools. Clearly, I believe that given the fact that we asked, you know, workers to take a furlough of 4 days in order to balance the budget, that ultimately proved not to be needed. I think it would be an important thing to do to give those workers back their money. We had I mean, it's a great story. We had a wonderful surplus that we experienced. But at the same time, I know, because I was in this. I was the chairman of the council when we had to do this. And we were looking at questions like, do we have a furlough or do we, you know, we reduce jobs? And fortunately, the council came together and said, look, we don't want to cut jobs. Let's do the furlough. We did the 4 days, so I think we should do the right thing and give people back their money. So we'll keep working with it, Alan. Sam?
I'm just interested, Councilmember Graham has an idea on bar hours. I guess the talk, you've proposed extending closing time, I think, to like by an hour, weekdays and on the weekends to as late as 4 o'clock in the morning. Councilmember Graham was talking about an idea of putting a 6-cent a drink tax to do that instead of what you have proposed. I'm just interested in how your reaction to it.
Well, I think that starts then with the premise that something was wrong with the proposal that we've advanced. I don't see anything wrong with the proposal we've advanced. When you look at other jurisdictions, for example, there are other jurisdictions that do just this. There are people who are, associated with nightlife in the District of Columbia who would love to be able to see us extend the hours. It wouldn't be the first time that we've done it. As a matter of fact, during the inaugural period when President Obama was elected and inaugurated as president, we had a whole week of activity. And that is part of the proposal too, Sam, for 2013 and 2017. And we had no untoward incidents. So I stay with where I was in the first place. I said no new taxes also, and I don't want to move to introducing a new tax when I said I wouldn't do that. But more importantly, I don't see anything flawed about the proposal we've advanced. No, I'm continuing to support what we've submitted.
If they passed it, would you sign?
If what was passed.
If they chose instead
We'll
this.
cross that bridge when we get to it. Mark?
Well, can we stay on this topic? It sounds like you're open to the idea. I mean, we'll cross this bridge. I mean, in one breath you say no new taxes, and the next breath.
I said very clearly, I support what I've submitted. I don't know what else I can say other than Mark. I support the budget that I've submitted, and that includes the proposals around extending the hours, around have the grocery stores and liquor stores open, be able to sell at 7 rather than 9 in the morning, and adding 2013, 2017. So that's where my focus is right now.
Point, if that
That's where my focus is right now.
But if that doesn't survive the council, which is Mr. Graham's proposal, that it doesn't survive his markup, or when it gets to the Jack Evans committee, into the council whole, and it lands on your desk as a tax increase rather than an extension of the hours, are you saying that you'll consider that, or are you telling them in no uncertain terms that you won't sign that? It sounds like you're open to considering that.
You know what? When I played baseball, I played a doubleheader. I never played the second game before I finished the first game. So I'm going to finish the first game and hope to win the first game and then move on. But if we don't win the first game, then we'll look at what we have to look at that. But this stage, I'm focused on what we submitted. Al?
On the 2013 budget, after yesterday's supplemental vote, I had a council member said that maybe you didn't have very good control over the political leanings of the council. He said that you have to be able to lead the whole city and give confidence that he can move an agenda or the budget he just proposed to us is going to fall apart. Do you think that council member is maybe exaggerating a bit, or do you?
No. Everybody has an opinion in this city, Al. There's no shortage. So that person is entitled to their opinion. I think we've submitted a budget that really is quite sound, and as I said before, we'll continue to support our budget. Tom?
There's about 10 or 11 people vying for the Ward 5 council seat. How closely have you watched that race? Do you know many of the people you plan to back one of them?
No, I'm not going to endorse anyone. There are people who I know that are in this race, so we'll watch the race as it unfolds and hope that the best candidate wins. But I really have not attended any the forums or any events associated with it, nor, frankly, more than just a casual hello have I even talked to any of the candidates.
So you say you're not following this closely at all, this race for the Ward?
No, I mean, I follow it like everybody else. I mean, it depends on what your definition of closely is. I hear people talk about it. I've engaged in casual conversation, but Mark, I'm not involved myself in any way in this election.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you've spoken with Councilmember Thomas recently, and if you can give us any details of that conversation. Chairman Brown said he spoke to his wife recently and is and saw his children. I'm wondering if you've had any exchange with the family.
No, I have not. I've seen his mother at various meetings, and you know, I've really, you know, I've asked her how she's doing, and she's still out actively engaged. I mean, I think those who know Romaine Thomas know what a strong person she is, and what an enormous contribution she has made to this city as a leading educator for many years. But no, I've had no conversations in the recent past with Harry Thomas Jr. or his family.
He'll be sentenced on Friday. Your Attorney General has weighed...
tomorrow, isn't it?
Oh, is it tomorrow? I'm sorry. You're right. It is tomorrow. Your Attorney General has weighed in. Mr. Thomas's lawyers have gone back and made a filing in reaction to the U.S. Attorney's filing on a sentencing recommendation, saying that his work with youth over his entire life should outweigh or certainly take great weight in considering whether or not he should actually do any long prison time. You've been reluctant to say whether you think he should serve even 1 day in prison.
I think that those decisions are imminent, obviously, since they will be made tomorrow, and we'll wait like everybody else to see what the court's decisions are. You're on a roll today, aren't you?
Well, I got a list. On the 5 murders, in a very brief, we've had a bit of a spike in homicides in the district. What can you tell us as far as what the chief is telling you on closure and what she's doing as far as curbing this spike, and what your message is to the residents who, for the past more than a year, have seen the homicide rate decline steadily?
Yeah, and the homicide rate continues to decline. It has declined every month of this calendar year. We've now had 4. I think we were down by 2 in January, 1 in February and March, and 2 or 3 in April. So by comparison to the same period last year, we probably are 6 or 7 below that, on course, frankly, hopefully, to be able to get below 100, which was our goal for this year. In talking with the chief and talking with Deputy Mayor Quander, I don't think we see any connectedness between these events. We know that one person was killed by, you know, someone who appears to have a mental health challenge with a hammer. We had another situation over in Kenilworth where somebody was shot and allegedly may have been high. I think the important thing is to be able to investigate these situations quickly and bring people to justice, and there already have been people who have been arrested and charged with some of these very recent homicides, Mark. Yes?
Can I ask you about where things stand regarding appointments to the Ethics Board? And along those lines, I believe your representatives have indicated in comments that you are looking to appoint lawyers or someone with a legal background. Can you just share with us what your timetable is and what qualifications you're looking for in terms of appointments?
Well, first of all, the chairman and I have agreed that he will have, not later than the next legislative meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in June, he will have our nominees for that. We've had substantial conversations about that. And frankly, we're looking for people who are qualified. That could be an attorney, may not be an attorney. We're looking for people who understand, you know, the importance of ethics, who understand what the legislation states. They will be the first members of this board, and they will have to shape this, and that's a unique responsibility that they will have.
So you're not looking exclusively for attorneys?
No.
I've got 2 more.
Let me see what kind of book you got back there.
Could you comment on the settlement in the mental health case? And I know this was something that your administration inherited from a decade ago, but I think what a lot of people are wondering about is, you know, why was this just not settled? Instead of dragging it through the courts, incurring all the legal expenses, only to end up settling for more than $2.5 million.
Well, I think it goes all the way back to 2000. And by the way, if you don't mind, I'd like to say it's not a mental health case. It's a case involving people with mental retardation and developmental disabilities, and I've spent a lifetime trying to draw the distinction between those two. So mental health is over here. That would be the Dixon case. Mental retardation is over here. Developmental disabilities, that would be the Evans case. I can't speak to why it wasn't settled. I really don't know. But again, as having been in the early stages of my career and for a substantial period of time, a real advocate for people being able to live in the community, I'm glad that people have gotten the chance to be able to do that. and we clearly need to continue to improve our community-based system. We were the second in the nation to be institution-free. New Hampshire was first, and we made some important strides. There were some setbacks in the aftermath of that with some of the community services in the late 90s, and this may have been in the aftermath. What happened, Mark, was the provider community, which became essentially the private sector, expanded very rapidly. And I think we know that in some instances, people may have done a good job with a certain capacity that they could execute, but if they went beyond that, they may not have been as ready to be able to do the job. So I can't speak to why this went on for 12 years. I don't know, but it's over with at this stage.
We were talking about taking back the park. There's another team in town that would like people to wear red. I didn't hear you mention anything about rocking the red tonight.
Rock the red, man. We're 1-1. We're 1-1. We beat the Bruins. We beat the Bruins. Every one of those games was decided by one goal in one of the most exciting series we've ever seen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Nationals are doing well. I'm very proud of them, and I hope they beat the Rangers. I won't be there. I won't be at Game 3, but I'm going to try to go to get part of Game 4.
Tom has the last question.
Oh, well, he might want one more. Mr. Mayor,
Well, you just came in, so how many questions do you want?
No, I'm asking somebody else. You may want one more. I apologize for being late.
You don't ever cut me that kind of slack.
I was busy. As the mayor said the other day, I was taking care of personal business. I know you don't really want to respond to it, but you know, tomorrow's a very big day with Harry Thomas Jr. going to prison to the court tomorrow and likely get a prison sentence. Without necessarily addressing him, how do you think the ethics cloud over the city is doing these days? Will it be lifted some after tomorrow? I'm just wondering what you're thinking as this council member goes before the judge tomorrow.
I don't know. There was a question about that before you came in, and I tried to address the question that was asked. But I look at how the city is doing, and the city is doing extremely well. You know, our population has increased. We are, as you know, I think, having increased by 2.7%. We are the fastest growing state in America. People are continually and in large numbers coming to the city. You look at our crime rates, they are substantially down in some areas where we're concerned, you know, like robbery or theft. But on homicides, even though we've had a spike, we're continuing to go in the right direction. Unemployment is doing very well. When we came into office, it was 11.2%. It is down to 9.8%. And we're now working hard to get to those people who are really among the hardcore unemployed, who've been without a job for a very significant period. Today, we talked a lot about how we're connecting the dots with children, you know, from the very early developmental stages all the way through, you know, the early adult years, and trying to align everything. And I think we understand what that alignment is. I think if we can get the infrastructure solidly in place, it will lessen the extent to which it's personality-driven. And so much of this has been personality-driven over the years, where if it's all-star X or all-star B, you know, then things go well. If that person leaves, then you're almost like starting over again. What we're trying to build is an enduring system so that, you know, you look at some of our sports teams. I use a lot of sports analogies. There's some teams that win 1 year, you know, year in and year out. And because they have a system that works. The Patriots, you know, are one of those teams. The Yankees, one of those teams. They know what the pieces are that need to be in place. And even though the players change, the system continues to be successful. And that's what we're moving towards with that.
And I know that you're focused. I've known Tommy Thomas for a long time. Don't you have some personal view as the leader of the city that you can just your personal disappointment, your chagrin, anything other than just not addressing it?
I have said all that before, Tom. I feel very badly for his family. I don't understand why this happened. I've not asked, you know, I've not even seen him because that was asked before you came in. I don't know why this happened. It was a shocker to me that it did happen. Again, he has 3 wonderful children. You know, his son is a great baseball player. He's in 11th grade. He'll go to the 12th next year. I'm almost sure he will get scholarships because he's that good of a player. He's got a wonderful wife, wonderful mom. He has a wonderful family. And, you know, I extend my heart to them. in hopes that they will be able to get through this. All right.